What's up, trade crew? Welcome back to HVAC R&D, hosted by Rhydon Atzenhoffer. Tonight, I am joined by a multi-hat wearing product manager and engineer from a major manufacturer who is here to discuss the advantages of the Inflation Reduction Act and the details of the 25C tax credits. Let's get it, y'all. From the beginning of this show, I've always said that the trades industry is built on great people with great stories, and I want the trade crew to hear yours. Whether you're in the field turning a wrench or running duct, building a trades empire from your office, working the distribution counter, grinding a sales territory, repping or working for a manufacturer, or anywhere in between, HVAC R&D is the show about the power of conversation, collaboration over competition, and sharing real conversations from every corner of the trades community. And if you've got a story to tell, then I've got a microphone ready for you. So when you're ready, go check out the links to the HVAC R&D podcast questionnaire that are on all social media channels and on the website, and get in touch with me about joining an episode of the show. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much for sharing some time with me. If you're coming back show after show, thank you for helping me continue to make this dream of highlighting our trades a reality. Please make sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons on any and all streaming and social platforms where you follow the show, and please share with your friends and trade crew. If you aren't following the show, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at hvac.rnd, and on LinkedIn, Facebook, and TradeHounds as the HVAC R&D podcast. Please make sure to go check out hvacrnd.com and visit the swag shop for some cool merch and some Cajun Joe's Bayou Spice, and then check out the vendor hub for discounts on BetterHelp, Chirp, Service Titan, and my newest partner, SkillCat. Joining us this evening, trade crew, is Gimmie Abraham from Bosch Home Comfort. As a key team member at Bosch, Gimmie brings a wealth of expertise in HVAC systems and energy-efficient solutions. Today, we'll explore his journey in the industry, Bosch's innovative IDS line, and how contractors can maximize opportunities with the 25C tax credit and other available tax incentives for their customers and their business. We'll also discuss Bosch's commitment to supporting the trade community and driving sustainability in HVAC. So, Gimmie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Absolutely. I think we're going to have a good time today. We'll find a way to make government and tax stuff sound much more fun.
Yeah, it's always hard trying to do, but we'll do our best. It's a huge and exciting opportunity. I hope that comes across throughout the podcast. I think it will.
So typically when we start this show, I want guys on the show to be able to kind of tell their story, and we talk a little bit about, life and how we ended up in the trades. And also it's holiday season. So, are there any fun winter activities or hobbies that you get into this time of year?
Yeah. So, I'm based out of the Boston area, so New England. And I was a skier as a kid and I lost it for nearly a decade. But now that I live back in that area, I've been getting back into it. So that's kind of the plan for this winter, is as much skiing as possible, maybe some cross country skiing as well, but that'll be the big focus. Yeah, and there's, so far some snow, which is exciting. So hopefully the rest of the winter holds up and there's some more snow in the mountains.
Now, did you grow up in that area? I know it looked like you went to Michigan for your graduate degree. Now, are you from Michigan originally, or are you from the Boston area?
No, so I'm from Pennsylvania actually originally. So in between Reading and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, is kind of Amish country area actually.
Gotcha.
And then I was in the Midwest for undergraduate, and like you said, at Michigan for a graduate degree, and then now ended up in Boston. So I kind of bounced around a couple places before settling into New England.
Do you travel? Are you guys traveling for the holidays, or any special traditions you gotta get somewhere for?
Not this year. We sometimes you normally go down to parents or something like that in Pennsylvania, or my fiance is born and raised in Boston. That's kind of why I ended up there. So we'll be hanging out with her parents a bunch and hanging out, but no, nothing crazy this year. Kind of nice, honestly. You need that rest and relaxation every once in a while, right?
I said I get to go hang out with the in-laws tonight too. So excited.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah, always fun, right?
Oh yeah. So I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, so I grew up with snow.
Hmm.
We actually got snow and you guys won't consider this snow. We got a dusting of snow about a week ago, and it was the first time the Charlotte metro area has seen snow in 1,000+ days, I think.
No way. Wow.
I grew up with snow a lot, but even by the time I was in high school, I swear it didn't snow as much as it did when I was a little kid.
Yeah, even this past winter in Boston, it was like there was that kind of thing, dustings here and there. Luckily, the mountains got more snow last winter, but in the Boston area, it was like very, very little as well. Yeah, it's definitely something that's happening more and more, right?
I was gonna say, when you say mountains, do you go north towards Maine, or do you go west towards kind of the border and everything else?
Yeah, no, definitely north. You could like people ski in Western Mass, which is fun. I haven't done it yet, but the big mountains are relatively big, compared to out west. But big for us. Mostly New Hampshire and then Vermont, and then yeah, Maine, and then the Adirondacks and New York are also awesome mountain ranges. But that's like a anywhere from 4 to 5 hour, even 6 hour drive, depending on where you're going. So we can jet up to the southern part of the Whites in New Hampshire in 2.5 hours, something like that, 2 hours. So it makes it not so bad to get up there and do a quick day trip.
Nice. For us, growing up, everything was in Boone, which is where most of the skiing stuff happened, Beach
Hmm.
Mountain and places like that. I never grew up skiing. There was another heating contractor that my dad and I competed with, but all of us that were kids were kind of the same age. But they went skiing all the time. I remember them talking about it when we were kids. And then I actually ended up in some of the same college classes with the daughter of the rival HVAC family, which is even funnier.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
But small region of the state where there weren't a bunch of people, so you kind of knew all of your
Know everyone.
competition a lot more than you do now.
Yeah, that
Everybody
makes
kind of had
sense.
their own little. Everyone kind of had their own little niche, and everyone kind of, in some ways, almost all would really help each other in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of those small communities, right? Is everyone knows each other, and yeah, you might be competing against each other, but at the end of the day, you're your neighbors and friends, right?
Luckily, it's mostly still like that back home. There's been a lot of outside influence into those areas of the mountains and the high country. I know
Hmm.
you'll probably see a lot more outside influence is going to come into the high country post all this hurricane disaster stuff. Unfortunately, I hope they don't lose some of that local feel, because I will tell you, watching how the local communities have pulled together through that stuff it proves that we haven't lost all of the good that was raised into us in those areas. I'll say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's tangentially related, but I saw that like I run quite a bit, so in the running community, there's been a bunch of like races and all these fundraisers, and it seems like the community they're really bound together as much as possible to try to fix it. But it's yeah, crazy
Yeah.
what happened there. So were you affected by that, or were you a little bit?
My parents were not. They were in Bryson City. The Tuckasegee River, which runs through Swain County, came up some. There was some minor flooding around the main part of downtown, but nothing compared to the kind of just utter devastation that places like Chimney Rock and Spruce Pine and other
Mhm.
places just were decimated. Marshall, where a fellow coworker lives in Marshall, and we have inside partners had an office in Marshall that had 6 feet of water in it.
Oh my
That
gosh.
whole little town was just devastated, and it's been rebuilding and rebuilding. And I've been able to watch some of it. If anybody follows Tony Bormino, or HVAC TV, as his show is now called, he's been right in the thick of that from the beginning. We've been able to see a whole lot more from a true local perspective. And then I've got
Mhm.
several customers that are up in the Linville area, and some other people that have been dealing with already replacing equipment, changing systems. I know we did some special pricing through Bosch equipment for our guys up there, where we
Mhm.
kind of just took some on the teeth to make sure we could help them get to where they could, because none of the insurance companies are helping anybody with anything, so it's all still coming out of pocket, which is very sad. But
Yeah.
no one has flood insurance at 5,000 feet. Why
Right.
would you?
Yeah. Exactly. Who would have thought? Right.
No, it's crazy. Myself and a branch manager, we drove up through Deep Gap, which is really getting into heavy elevation, and we drove through some of the valleys there. And this is 5,000 plus elevation, and there are valleys there that had 20 feet of water in them, because you
Oh
can
my
see all the
God.
debris up in the trees, 14, 15 feet above the road that was
Yeah.
underwater that's about 6 feet above the river. It's insane the amount of damage that it did.
Yeah, like you're saying, at elevation, like not like it's in the lowest lying valley either. Oh, it's
No,
nuts.
and that's why the places like Chimney Rock that were downstream got absolutely obliterated, because you dump, 30 inches of rain at 6,500 feet and then it rolls downhill for a mile.
Hmm.
I mean,
It's gonna be a problem by the
it's
end.
a
Yeah.
it's nature's eraser.
Right. Yeah.
Literally the hand of God just running down through a valley like, yeah, that's over.
Nuts. But it is inspiring, the rebuilding, like you're saying, and I mean that's you know one of the awesome parts of being in the HVAC industry, right? Is like people
Yep.
need our equipment to live, and we can be there to really help them in times of need, which is it's always fulfilling and important, I think.
That's been something that's helped some of us even be able to sleep at night, is at least we know we've been able to get things up there to people that need it and help them as best we could. So it's been, thinking about a lot of those people during the holidays. There's a lot of thoughts and prayers, and there's been a lot of people that have really gone out of their way to help people in the mountains. So I will continue to try to bring kind of some exposure to that stuff, because the media doesn't cover a lot of it, and there's a lot of stuff people don't know that's going on there that's good or bad.
Right.
So
Exactly.
if there's anything this show will ever do, it's going to tell you the truth, like it or not.
Gotta respect that, right? It's
Gotta
always a
respect
good
that.
thing. Truth is always good.
So how did you get into HVAC? I grew up into it. I tried to escape it. It's never going to happen. But not everybody grows up into it. Some people just get roped into it. So kind of tell me how you got into the trap of HVAC. We can call it that.
Yeah, I think instead of roped into it, I kind of fell into it, I guess would be the better way to put it. So I was at Michigan, as we said, studying renewable energy systems. So I was kind of interested in thermodynamics specifically. So you'd always study a heat pump in a class, but I never, looked at a HVAC product and thought to myself, oh, that's super cool. That's what I'm learning, and wasn't really um, interested in the HVAC industry as a place I wanted to go into. I was, like I said, studying renewable energy systems, and I got a scholarship with Bosch, but not in HVAC and automotive. So in Michigan, obviously, all the automotive manufacturers are there, and so we have a big, and honestly the biggest part of Bosch's business is in the mobility sector. So like windshield wipers, but then also like gasoline injectors and all of the kind of things inside your car that you don't look at, or a lot of them are made by Bosch. So I got in the automotive industry there with that scholarship and was doing an internship. And I loved working for the company. Like I immediately was like, okay, Bosch is an awesome company. I want to stay in industry. I don't want to do a PhD anymore or anything like that. Like I definitely want to keep working for the company. Um, However, my fiance is, like I said, born and raised in Boston. She always wanted to end up in Boston. And I mean, New England's awesome, so I was super pumped about that. And there was a limited amount of Bosch offices in the New England area. So I was an automotive guy studying renewable systems, all this stuff, and saw that there was this little office for Bosch Home Comfort making HVAC equipment. And I was like, oh, I understand the theory, I understand the background. I'm not in the industry, but it sounds super cool and exciting. I always want to work in something that matters, like whether it's decarbonization or, like we were saying, with just kind of HVAC equipment helps people at the end of the day. So does mobility. I always wanted to do something that contributes, and I felt like that kind of checked that box. And so we had moved to Boston. That was the one office that was there. Applied for a job and got it. And so it just kind of fell fell into the industry basically through that job. Um, Eyes wide open, like brand new, was learning a ton, which was awesome. I was fortunate that our the office that I was in was also the training department, like the training area, and so I was
Gotcha.
just able to sit in on a bunch of trainings and meet contractors that way, and just got really, uh, you know, first row view of the HVAC industry after that, and rest is history. I've been loving it since, and probably going to stay in the industry for the rest of my life. It's awesome. I'm super pumped to be a part of it, and it's very fortunate that, like I said, I really did fall into it at the end of the day.
Well, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with being able to get into an office where there's training, but you could also sit in the office, listen to trainings, you could meet contractors. And I think where some manufacturers fall short at times is really doing a good job of their engineers being in tune with what the contractor is facing in the field and the challenges they're having to overcome. And where I've seen in the 21 months that I've been involved with selling Bosch product is most of the people that are involved with the HVAC side have a pretty decent grasp of who their customer is. And I think you see that through the way they do things with their products.
100%. Yeah, and that was something that was emphasized to me on the very first day was, I was, like I said, in the R&D role before that. So I didn't even know who my customer was at the end of the day. My customer was just, making things for the sake of innovation. And then to go to the polar opposite where yeah, I think it was like the first couple of days I was sitting in training, talking to contractors, asking them at the time, the dumbest questions in the world. And they were super generous in helping me out and explaining these things. It really set up a great foundation of knowledge. And then, I don't know, that kind of intro to the industry, it made me realize, like you're saying, how important understanding and talking to the customer is. And I think that's not just me. I think, like you're saying, everyone at Bosch, especially on the engineering side, as much as possible, tries to make sure that we really understand who we're working with, and at the end of the day, who we're working for, because the contractors that are going to be dealing with equipment the whole time, and like we want to make sure that's great for the end user as well, but for the guys that are installing it, using it, transporting all that stuff, like we want to make sure that we have the best products possible, and you can only do that by talking to people at the end of the day. So yeah, I got, like I said, super lucky with being able to have that kind of exposure and a great set of contractors that are in the area and getting trained by Bosch as well, where, like I said, I was just sitting there asking the the simplest of simple questions, and there were people there to explain it to me in the most basic levels, which was super helpful, and I think, like I said, is a great foundation for learning going forward.
Well, and if you look at what the changes you guys have made with HVAC products since it came out, from the 1.0 to as we go into, we went through CR2 change, now we're getting ready to go to an A2L change. One of the biggest hurdles we've seen in the industry is trying to convince guys that have been in the industry for decades to start embracing inverter technology.
Mhm.
And while, yes, it's been in the industry forever with mini splits, for some reason, some people struggle with the fact that a split system can be engineered just like a mini split. It's still designed to do the same thing. For guys to be able to put in a Bosch system, which takes this advanced inverter technology, which I'll say it's advanced. Inverter technology has been around a long time. We've already said that, but you guys continue to kind of push the envelope of what it is. But you guys put it into a package that's very straightforward and easy for the contractor to embrace and get used to. A lot of other brands, they have inverter technology, but sorry, other brands, a lot of it is way, way, way over-engineered and overcomplicated for what it is. You guys give people those high-efficient systems while putting it in a system that is much more palatable for contractors to accept and learn and grow with over time.
Yeah, and I think it kind of helps that Bosch, at the end of the day, we're focused on heat pumps, high efficiency equipment. Like we don't sell single stage air conditioners or single stage heat pumps or anything like that. Like we only do these inverter products. Um, but I think that helps a lot where it really does help simplify. So when we're communicating to people, hey, we have this inverter heat pump,
Yep.
like this is the only thing to focus on. And there's not this, baseline of something that's simpler. It's just like, this is what it is. And like you're saying, we can train and educate people. Here's how an inverter works. Here's what it does. Here's why it's here. It's not this scary thing. Like you guys can understand it too. It's not that complicated. And then
Correct.
when they are installing it, maybe there's another step to think about, or just having that knowledge in the back of your mind that, okay, there isn't something different that's in this equipment. But when you actually get people to understand the technology and have that education component, it makes it way, way easier for everyone to install it and understand it, and not be so intimidated by it, which I think is a benefit of what we do, is just having that one kind of technology that we can really focus and dive in on.
Well, and talking about different things that kind of can be roadblocks, have you faced, what kind of challenges have you faced, moving from auto to HVAC and kind of overcoming that change so far with Bosch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning, right? Everyone is at the end of the day, but
That's true.
there's a lot of things I'm learning constantly. I think the biggest thing, and I kind of hinted at it, was that customer focus. Um, like when I was in R&D, like I said, I was really focused on innovating and making this product, and it could go to a whole host of customers, but it wasn't like there was a single person or single company that we were nailing down. We were nailing down Ford or GM or Stellantis, like this giant conglomerate.
Yep.
So I think that it was very different. Instead, focusing on a product that's going to be, there are still big contractor companies that are out there. Don't get me wrong, but you're also working with people that are, just a mom and pop shop, one truck, one van, a couple people working at the company, and you're making products that are, working for this entire set of people that are, have totally different backgrounds, totally different focuses. You get the regional component as well, right? You're a Ford only makes a car for the U.S. and that's it. There's one model for a pickup truck, say, just as an example, and it goes everywhere. With us, you have to focus on all these different regions and all these different requirements in terms of codes and all these different things. And yeah, the requirements are all different, but you still need to make this product that kind of works for everyone. Um, which that was just kind of something that was mind blowing to me, is that you're really tailoring as much as possible what you're doing to individual customers that are out there, like individual people that are working on this product, and not just this one big company. So I think that was one big thing that was new for me. I think the other thing was, uh, like I said, mechanical engineer by trade, so I understood the concept and the theory of a heat pump. But that is, what's on in a textbook and what you're doing on the test is completely different than an installation, and what's actually the most efficient in a household, and all these different components like that can come into a single installation that can change how a product does and does not work. So I think that
Yep.
was another thing that was, I always knew that it makes sense that something in the field is going to be different that's on textbook, but actually, seeing field test installs and getting out to a household, talking to contractors, talking to customers, I think actually like living that and really understanding what it means to have something out in the field versus just kind of knowing in the back of your head, like, oh yeah, it's different out in the field is two totally different things. So that was kind of another big hurdle, was taking the time and the effort to actually get out there as much as possible and talk to people about these products to really understand what challenges are out there, rather than, like I said, just sitting in an office and thinking about it and thinking that that's enough.
You've already mentioned it before. Then you really look at Bosch's emphasis on innovation, sustainability, and those kind of things, and also on building a product for the customer. And I feel like that kind of, to me, it aligns with what you were saying about you wanted to be in a place that you were developing things to help make a difference. And was that kind of, now did you grow up doing any kind of philanthropy, or do you have family that did that, or kind of what's always driven you to want to give back?
That's a really good question. I th- there's not. I don't think there's one specific instance where I was like, okay, I want to make a difference, and had that as like a concrete thought, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
think the bigger thing was just I found my motivation was a lot higher, and I was a lot more interested in something when there was a real outcome. Um, like at the beginning of college, I was thinking about nothing against the finance world. I mean, it's hugely important, and it's just a totally different world that I don't fully understand. But that was not ever interesting to me at all, because didn't feel like I was making something. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and like I said, I don't understand all the intricacies of it. Um, but that was kind of why I was initially interested in engineering, was it felt like I was actually making something and doing something.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it just comes back to, like I said, having that inherent motivation of being interested in it. Like, once you have that passion, that drive to actually care about something, and understand, okay, what I'm doing right here is hopefully in a really small little way going to contribute to someone's life down the line and contribute to the world down the line, it automatically like makes me want to work on it 10 times harder, versus just having this some like abstract concept that's floating around in the air. Like, I think finance is an easy one to pick on, like I said, where it's just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's not things that are tangible that you can hold, you can feel, you understand. So I think it wasn't necessarily like a point in my life where I was like, okay, I really want to help people. I just kind of naturally found that I was more motivated by something that had uh, tangible experience with people, or the world.
No, I completely get that because from my side of the fence, the whole reason I ended up staying in the HVAC industry, you know, growing up on the contractor side and working my way through college and all that, doing those things was one thing, but making the switch to distribution, a lot of the reason I made the switch to distribution, aside from the, you know, the headaches of financial crisis and everything that was happening when I got done with school in 2010, a lot of it was I wanted to go be the salesperson that my dad and I's company never had,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt there was a means as a salesperson to really make a difference in helping your contractor's business as opposed to just being an order taker. And I wanted to
100%.
be able to get to know people because I love people and build relationships and spend time with them and help them help their business, help them help their family. Because I knew if I helped them help their business and help their family, it was only going to come back to me and help my business and my family. Which in some of that's the way you're raised too. But I wanted to help make a difference to give people a means to do better.
And I think that comes back to this idea of like, so Bosch generally focus on sustainability. And we're talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but Bosch is also a privately held company, so it's has a little bit more of a long-term view. And I like to think about that a lot because we not only make, sustainable people in terms of trying to decarbonize as much as possible and that whole side of it, but there's also this business sustainability aspect of it, right? Where it's like you want to make sure that what you're doing is going to be sustainable long term and not just the next quarter, the next year, whatever. And I think it kind of ties back to what you're saying with like on the sales side, for example. I think that's a great example where if you're genuinely trying to help people, like you're saying, and build a relationship with someone and only giving them what's the best and what's best for them, what's best for the world, all that fun stuff, it not only has that benefit of like the human side of things, or if you take it at scale, the global side of things with like a really great electrified or decarbonized product that's awesome and good. But then you also have the business sustainability aspect of it too, where like they know that you had their best interest in mind. You were genuinely offering them a product that was the best for their situation, and you know then that they're going to come back to you as a customer down the line. So it's got kind of this win-win. It just made me think of that as you were kind of talking through that.
Well, and that, you know, that perfectly segues us into, you know, what the main focus of this show is really meant to be about is helping contractors, one, understand what's available to offer homeowners and also help them know enough to kind of educate homeowners a little bit on how they can make the most of using higher end product going into the Inflation Reduction Act, 25C tax credits. I know there's a few other that you mentioned as we were talking earlier in the show. So kind of as we start talking about that, I guess let's start with the basics. So, you know, what really are the basics behind the Inflation Reduction Act and kind of how from there does it roll into all these different tax credit brackets, and how do we tie those with the right products with you guys? So I guess let's kind of start there.
So I'll try to zoom out as far as possible and then kind of focus in on specific programs. So I think to start, kind of like we were saying at the beginning, it's easy to kind of have people, and I've made presentations about this in the past, like AHR, for example, and you have some people that are like, policy nerds and they're super into it and they're very engaged, ask a question, but then there are a lot of people too that are just trying to learn, and you find there are people that are, their what's the word, like attention is kind of waning, because it can be kind of a boring thing talking about tax
Yep.
credits, but we'll try to make it, engaging, exciting, just because it is such a awesome opportunity. I can't emphasize that enough, that like what's in front of us in terms of the HVAC industry is really something that's unprecedented and is not only an opportunity to sell high efficiency, sustainable equipment, which is great in general, but it's also just an opportunity to kind of not upsell people, but they can really, like you were saying, be able to afford now this higher end, more efficient, energy saving a product, and it'll cost the same as that, cheaper product that didn't have all these other benefits. So that's kind of the beauty of it at the end of the day, is these programs really offer you to be able to sell the highest or the best of the best to people and not have it hurt their pocket at the end of the day, which is what anyone really cares about, especially when installing these products. So it's kind of a win-win and a no-brainer. So generally, the Inflation Reduction Act, I hate that name. It's such a misnomer of a name,
It's
and
rough. Yeah,
people
it's rough.
gripe about that all the time. It doesn't really make sense, but basically the goal for a lot of the climate policies. There's other stuff that's roped into it, but on the climate side, really the goal is just to decarbonize the U.S. as much as possible. That's number one, and then also kind of get top to bottom from the grid. There's incentives for the grid all the way down to what's in people's homes. Trying to have the best and highest efficiency equipment that you can in all aspects. So there's like tax credits for hydrogen. There's tax credits for renewable energy with solar and wind and all this stuff at the utility level. And then there's also tax credits for the consumer that's installing the heat pump. So kind of, like I said, soup to nuts all across the grid. There's opportunities available.
I'll interject real quick right there. And the biggest thing is when you guys are, as contractors, are looking at how you help the homeowner with these different things, it's important to know that every single local utility may or may not have something, and theirs may or may not be completely different. So unfortunately, you do have to do some research to figure out what's really available in the local markets. I know we're still not drilled down to there yet, but as we start talking about state and different incentives, I want to make sure that guys do know that you've got to go do some of your own research there, because even in some of the examples that we may discuss, that may not be available in your area. So make sure to go back and take a look at certain different things.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's where I think Bosch can help. Is we have a rebate finder tool on our website where you type in the zip code and you can get basically what products qualify in that zip code for certain local rebates. But it's a great point.
Don't give them all the good tools yet. Make them listen to you first.
Okay, yeah, right. Gotta sync that at the end. Hey, that teaser for more details towards the end. That's a great point. But no, what you brought up is a great point. Is that it is a complicated landscape, and it's hard sometimes to keep track of all this different stuff floating around. I think that's why, like we said at the beginning, sometimes people's attention does wane a little bit because it's one of those things where there's all these different aspects and you're just like, it's too complicated for me. I don't want to deal with it. It's not a value add for my business right here, right now. And so it's, I'll leave it to someone else to deal with. And I think the message is that, yes, it is complicated, but if you take a little bit of time to learn the basics, or even focus on one specific lens. So, I mean, like you were saying, there's this rebate from a utility that's really local, kind of zip code by zip code lens. You also have state programs that are coming online with the Inflation Reduction Act, and we can get a little bit into that, but that's a little bit easier because, theoretically, if you qualify or the homeowner qualifies, everyone in the state can get that. And then there's also federal tax credits that are available to anyone that has a tax burden in the US. And so if you're thinking about this for your business as a contractor, you could say to yourself, maybe I want to do it all. I want to focus on all three different lenses, all the incentives possible. Yeah, it might take a little bit more work, but it could be worthwhile to offer that possibility to your customers. Or you could take another approach and say, I want to minimize the amount of time that I have to research this stuff as much as possible. If I just focus on a federal tax credit, I know that it's going to qualify for almost everyone that's installing this stuff. It's super easy to learn and understand. Maybe the incentive isn't as much, or you're not layering it with those other lenses, but it's good enough for me, and it's something that helps the homeowner, and that's just what I'm going to focus on. So although it is a complicated landscape, I think it is also possible to kind of, pull out bits and pieces that you want to take on in smaller chunks to be able to understand and master it before, expanding to all the other parts, which is hopefully makes it a little bit easier and more digestible and less intimidating if you're just getting into this whole world.
Well, and I think too, another key thing that it's got to be understood by the contractor so that you can educate the homeowner is there's a big difference in rebate and tax credit.
100%.
Two completely different things. I've had conversations with contractors and the homeowner's like, well, where's my rebate? And it's like, well, this is a rebate that's available through Duke Energy, for example, in this part of the world in the Carolinas. Here's a Duke Energy rebate that's available to you. But, well, this is only example, this is only $400. But, I was supposed to be able to save $2,400 on this job. It's like, well, you're saving $400 as a rebate. You're saving up to $2,000 as a tax credit. that does not come from me. You take this invoice to the tax man when you're doing or the accountant or whoever you've got when you're doing your taxes, and that's where that effect happens. I think we definitely need to make sure as we walk through this, we help people understand the difference in those so that they can educate homeowner too, and it's not kind of biting them in the rear end.
Yeah, it's such a good point, and I think we can get into it, but whether it's the timeline where, like you're saying, they're not going to see a tax credit benefit upfront. It's going to be in April of the next year when they see it. Um, Same thing with like qualified products, though, being really upfront to contractors about what products do and don't qualify has been super important to us because we want to make sure, kind of like you're alluding to, there's no missed expectations anywhere in the value chain. Like everyone is very clear and understands what's happening because that's the worst, right? Is you can give people bad news if it's in line with their expectations and you're upfront about it. Um, but saying something's there and then having it not become true is the worst, and that's something I think we as an industry, as much as possible, should try to avoid, just to make sure everyone's it's part of the buy-in aspect of this stuff too. Like the second that someone has a bad experience with one of these programs, they're gonna say, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to deal with it, not for me. um, if we can all try to make an effort to keep expectations aligned, have everyone understand what these programs are and are not. And I think the tax credit versus rebate is a great distinction. I think it would, make everyone benefit from this long term where it just becomes ingrained in the industry down the line, which I think would be a good goal to kind of strive for. But maybe we can get into the specifics because that's like I keep saying with the opportunity. Um, Kind of mentioned the number, but the big number there is $2,000 up to $2,000 for a qualifying HVAC install. So that's kind of like in terms of dollar amounts, like being really concrete about it. Something that's available to anyone that has a tax burden. Obviously, I'm not a tax professional. You gotta figure it out with your tax advisor and all those other disclaimers. But 30% of the project up to $2,000 can qualify for a tax credit. Um, which is a huge opportunity. Like 25C, this tax credit, that's the name of it, has existed in the past, and it's been in the range of anywhere from $150 to $300 per product, depending on what you're installing. So the fact that this is now $2,000, it really does make a sizable shift, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier, where um, when you're pitching a product to someone like a Bosch product that qualifies, for example, yeah, it might be a little bit more expensive than that single stage air conditioner, single stage heat pump, whatever it is. But you have that $2,000 tax credit that you can be pretty confident that they're going to qualify for. Obviously, that would be up to them to decide, and you have to figure that out. But in most cases, it's everyone across the country that has a tax burden can qualify. Um, so it's a really easy thing to try to incorporate that into your sales pitch where, yeah, you might be paying a little bit more for this better piece of equipment, but that's going to be discounted with this tax credit and other rebates that are available. So it makes the pitch a lot easier.
We're seeing more and more where you're having an HVAC contractor that's also doing plumbing or has added plumbing. There's also potential that if you're doing, Bosch heat pump from one side of it, you may be doing a Greentronic purchase for a hybrid water heater, or you might be doing Greentherm if you're doing a different kind of water heater, or even if you're doing something such as a combi boiler. So there's potential you can even roll a little bit more in there. I think it's up to 3,200 is your max between multiple different purchases, kind of rolling it into one project. There are some other nuances too, that if HVAC system is 20 years old, you're changing it, you've got an old tank water heater, you want to change it out and go tankless, or you've got room to put in a hybrid hot water heater and have fresh air. So there's other options there too, which can also help the contractor kind of upsell a little bit more and kind of lead them down another path.
On top of all that, like $3,200, exactly like you said, for all these different pieces of equipment combined. The $2,000 is just for heat pumps, but that's an annual number as well. So you could do up to 3,200. You're installing a heat pump, you're changing out some wiring, you're upgrading your electrical panel. $3,200 one year. The next year you could get another $3,200. Maybe it's for that, like you're saying, the combi boiler and heat pump water heater. I mean, that'd be kind of a crazy install in a single house, but you get the point where
Yep.
this is something that's not just a one-time thing and then you're done. the more and more that you can, work with the same customer, whether it is HVAC or plumbing or whatever else, the more projects that could be available year over year, which is, just adds on the excitement of this specific opportunity.
I'll let you talk about the cool tools now. So what's the easiest way outside of someone like myself, salesperson? It's my job to educate contractor on how to pick the right products to help the right situation with the homeowner and to at least give him the knowledge so that he can make those decisions. But, there's also a lot of times contractor needs to have time to do some of their own research. Bosch has some great online tools. So I'm going to let Gimmie kind of tell you about those and what all they can do to help you do some education on the back end, further than what you may be able to learn from your local distribution rep.
At least at Bosch, we're trying to take a couple of different approaches. One aspect is the education side, and then I think the other is more the concrete, what you need when you're talking to a homeowner, when you're selling a product, or when you're trying to figure out what system does and does not qualify. I'll start with the concrete actually, because I think that's not more important, but it's a little bit more tangible. There's two real ways that we're helping people as much as possible. When it comes to tax credits specifically, we have a qualified product list. And that has been really, really important to people, where we have all the AHRI reference numbers and model numbers that qualify for 25C for the past 2 years, 2023, 2024, as well as 2025. And those lists are so important because it's really kind of a cheat sheet of what does and does not qualify. So you can look up by AHRI reference number. Okay, is that the system that I'm going to be installing in this? Refer to the list. It matches. It's on there. Check. I'm good to go. I can install the system. So when you're at the distributor and you're trying to figure out what piece of equipment, or you're a sales guy trying to, like you're saying, educate people on what does and doesn't qualify, that list is super important. And you'll see, an acronym QPL, qualified product list. That's kind of your bread and butter, like a great tool specifically for 25C if you're trying to figure out what products qualify. If you're looking, a little bit bigger picture, maybe you're interested in some utility rebates, you're interested in tax credit, you don't really know where to start. That's where, as I was mentioning earlier, and didn't want to, give out all the good stuff too early, but we have a rebate tool on our website. So maybe I can, send you the links to all this stuff afterwards. So you can put in the show notes or something, just so people have it available. But like I said, it's basically a tool that you put in the you put in the zip code, and then all of the rebates and tax credits that are available for that zip code come up. So you would be able, it's a little bit of a different view where you're not focusing on the product side. It's more based on the region. And the idea is that it's more customer focused. But for that zip code, you'd be able to see every product that qualifies, ducted systems, mini splits, water source heat pump, water heaters, everything that could be installed in that zip code and qualify for, whether it's a utility rebate, whether it's tax credit, whether it's a state rebate, whatever it is. If it qualifies, it'll be there on that list. And so I think in terms of like concrete, actual, need information on what products to install, those are the two best resources that we're offering and continuing to offer. And we're always trying to iterate and improve this stuff. So we're in the process of making different tools and basically, web pages that'll have a tool embedded in it where you can mix and match a little bit of this information, where you can basically set a theoretical install and then give you how much savings there could be. So instead of having this list of all these different products, you could be a little bit more customized about it. It's not available yet, unfortunately. We're starting with one tax credit with kind of an internal tool, and we're hoping to build it up in the future. But that's something that, other websites like Rewiring America has a great tool like that could be used for now, and we're seeing that become more and more popular. But that's kind of the concrete side of things. I don't know if I heard you interject there for a second.
Well, I was going to say, if you're looking for the tool, I can definitely put a link in the vendor hub with some more stuff, linking to those Bosch resources, because I'm working on developing kind of a training and resources section of the vendor hub that's really about giving guys access to resources that are out there. If you've been to Bosch's website before, which is bosch-homecomfort.com, you can click the knowledge tab in the very middle of the top of the page, and it will drops down a drop down, and tax credits and rebates is the fourth drop down. You can literally just click that and go into all of these tools in one spot. And you can pick if you want to look at tax credits, U.S. rebates, Canadian rebates, or IRA information. So you can get all of that right there, and it's really quick to get to. It's really easy. And it looks good on a phone too. If you're in the field, you can do it that way. It's a little bit harder because it's just not as big of a screen, but you can get to it on a phone just as quick as you can on a computer.
Glad you know the website well. That's awesome. You described it perfectly. And if I may, that like what you mentioned about those four different areas, that kind of flips to the second side of kind of you can almost think about this as like a portfolio of offerings in terms of trying to educate people on Inflation Reduction Act and incentives, is the education side of things. And I think that's hugely important to, when you're selling something, everyone knows this, like you want to know what you're talking about. You don't want to be trying to BS someone on half knowing something. And so we're really, as much as possible, not only trying to give people the concrete, like these are the products that qualify, but also the back end information, the context of what is a tax credit, how does it work, who qualifies for it, all that information, just so if someone does ask you a question, you don't know the answer, at least at the bare minimum, you know where to find the answer, which is also super helpful. So like you said, we have that IRA webpage on our website where you can basically find all the details of what I was describing in words, probably a little bit more clear than what I was saying as well, for all different tax credits. So 25C, kind of the one that we were talking about most, but specific tax credits for water source heat pumps, new construction, rebates, all that different stuff is on that webpage. And then there's also a webinar series, which we've been doing, which is on our YouTube channel. I think we have 5 or 6 up at this point now, but basically 30-minute webinars that we're doing every 3 weeks, and we'll continue to do every 3 weeks. So in the future, feel free to join. You can ask questions in real time. But that's another great resource to, if you want to listen to it as a podcast, or if you want to look at the slides sometime on a Friday afternoon or something, just to learn a little bit more. Those are 2 really good resources to really learn and understand the background and the context, like I said, of these programs as well.
Well, and touching on that, I've been working with the Bosch marketing team, and as they start announcing these different webinars, they're starting to let me know when they're coming. So if you'll pay attention especially on LinkedIn, but also on the Instagram, HVAC.R&D. But if you look at either my personal Rhydon Atzenhoffer or the podcast on LinkedIn, as these different webinars are coming available, I'm dropping the info and the link to the webinar that you can register through either of my pages if you find it also. There'll be a couple different ways you guys can see them as they start coming out over the next coming months, because really at the end of the day, the point of this show is to give you guys more ways to learn and develop and grow in this industry, if I can help with that too.
I mean, we were talking a little bit about like Carolinas region, Southeast generally, or something we're going to try to do, which I hope is going to be a hit, is a regional focus as well. So like, tax credit, like I keep saying, it's great, everyone qualifies, but there are these state specific or utility specific rebate programs that are available. So maybe that's something that's exciting for your audience as well, as, your contractor might only focus on a certain area. They don't care about things that are happening in New York or California or wherever else. In the coming months, we're going to be doing regional kind of deep dive. So hopefully that's something of interest. If you're really only interested in your area, there will be a webinar coming your way with your region, hopefully. So maybe that's a little teaser for the coming months to keep an eye out for the webinars.
Well, and additionally, there are some distribution level contractor incentives regionally for the Southeast and hurricane affected places right now. They're going on through the end of this month, but there's also, I believe, there's talk of extending some of it. I won't go into full details of that because this is not necessarily always just contractors, so I don't want to give away some of that information. If you're a Bosch Home Comfort Pro or a Bosch contractor and you're looking for that kind of information, you can always shoot me an email or reach out to your local distributor in your area, whether it's Insight Partners for me or if it's anyone else that's selling the Bosch product where you are, and get some more of that info. But there is some stuff there for contractor specific assistance for helping people in some of these disaster laden areas right now. So don't forget about that either. So I guess we will roll into kind of what I've been calling Give More in 2024, which is actually sponsored by Bosch Home Comfort before they help do some other stuff for the show. So I've been running this segment for most of the year. And since you're a Bosch employee, you might have a little more insight for some of this. How does Bosch give back to the HVAC trade community and support workforce development incentives that you have seen since you've been there?
That's a great question. Two things come to mind. The first is very specific. We've been trying to do this more and more, and I'm going to be honest. Like when I first started 3+ years ago, it was something that we didn't do as well. Um, but actually, like working with trade schools sounds
Mhm.
obvious, but it's something that's pretty hard to do. There's so many different trade schools that are out there, and it's kind of hard to get the connections of who to work with, and it's already a fairly crowded space. But whether it's having trainings with at trade schools specifically, or something that we've been kicking off recently is donating a lot of our scratch and dent equipment to trade schools as well, or even giving them new equipment. That's something that we've been picking up the steam on a lot, and the benefits obvious, like they get equipment to train on and learn on, and then they're exposed to Bosch, which is kind of a win-win. But that's like a really direct and recent example. Like I was working on something related to that, so that's why it's the first thing that came to mind. But
Well, and you guys did that with me last year, so that's part of why I want to see you guys keep doing that, because it was amazing to be able to do that for that school in Chicago.
yeah, exactly. That was the one example, exactly. And it's just kind of a no-brainer, right? Like people, trade schools, they need equipment to train on. They should be training on not to toot Bosch's horn, but we're trying to, sell products that are going to be commonplace in the future. And so I think the sooner that people are learning on these more advanced products, yeah, it might be a little bit more challenging on the front, but then it makes all the other equipment that they may install down the line much, much easier. So that's kind of a no-brainer. And then I think the other one, and we've been harping on this point, is just the education aspect. I mean, that's something that's super important to Bosch, is just making sure that people are, whether it's the contractor, whether it's the distributor or the homeowner at the end of the day, everyone in the value chain is as educated as possible. And, we're trying to do things in-person trainings, digital media, social media posts, something that's a lot easier and more accessible to people, like all these different avenues to try to educate and share the Bosch message, and trying to, lift up the industry as a whole towards these really high efficiency and sustainable products. So I think those are the two immediate things that came to mind that we're trying our best to do to help the trades.
What advice would you share with fellow HVAC professionals who want to give back and contribute to the next generation of tradespeople, but don't know where to start?
That's a good question as well. I mean, I think the first place, I guess it depends on where you are, right? Um,
True, true,
but I
very true.
think it depends, like, just talking to people, like it sounds obvious, but um, like AHR, great example. It's an expo filled with everyone under the sun related to HVAC. Going to those kind of events, and maybe that's an extreme version because you have to travel for it, but we do road shows where we just have a bunch of products set up at a local bowling alley or bar or something, and you go, you hang out with other professionals, you network a little bit, you talk about product. I think really just kind of building those relationships is super important, because everyone, when you have a network around you, it's great to have a sparring partner or sparring partners, and kind of work with people on different issues that you're having or things that you want to improve. And I think just naturally by communicating and kind of getting out there and building that network, you're going to see what issues are out there and what's something that you can address. And I think a lot of that stuff happens pretty organically, honestly, where it's like, all the great things that have that have happened is like, I mean, maybe it's a cliche, but it like starts in someone's garage, or it's on a bar and you write out an idea on a bar napkin or something like that. It's like conversations like that are where great ideas spark, and not necessarily, in an office, in a meeting on a Teams call or something like that. Um, so I think that's kind of a great organic place to do. And it's something that I always try to do and can improve on as well, is just kind of getting out there, building a network and talking to people. And I think that's a great, you know, base to create and learn, and start a lot of ideas, which you could then dive into to try to make a difference.
Well, and I think something I've pushed on this show for really, I've really hammered on it a lot this year is talking about collaboration and relationships with people rather than competition. I think finding a way to really come together as contractors, as distributors, manufacturers, all of us together at a place like AHR, as a big example, but like you said, also in a local market level. That's how you push this next generation forward, and it's how you also help the next group of guys get into it. Is you make them feel welcome to the industry, as opposed to like, well, I've been doing it for 30 years. What do you think you're going to do when you come in here?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a complete difference of making it a more welcoming community at the same time to get people to want to come and be in the trades and do those things. Because if there's one thing I know about the trades, if you learn how to do something with your hands, nobody can take that from you. And that's the beauty of this industry. I think more people in the next generation of people really need to understand that. We've had 4-year degree beaten into our head for how long now, but it's not always necessarily what's going to change the world. It's the people that actually build the world.
100%. And it's, I mean, I said that when I first started in the HVAC industry. I was in this training with guys that were, a couple years in the industry, a couple of people that are my age. But then there are also guys, like you're saying, that are 30 years in the industry. That was one of the reasons that I got so interested in the industry overall, was just because I was welcomed in. I was asking, like I said, all these ridiculously stupid questions, like, oh, like how does a heat pump work? Like what does a ducted system actually mean? Like all this really simple stuff. Um, and everyone was just super helpful. Like they loved that I was so green in the industry. I had no idea what I was doing, and try to walk me through what an installation actually looks like in a home. And it's those kind of experiences that motivated me to stay in. And like you're saying, like you can kind of, as much as possible, welcome people in. It's only gonna benefit everyone at the end of the day.
This next question, I feel like we've almost kind of answered it, so it's almost a loaded question. But if someone were to come to you today and just say, hey, I've seen what you do. I'm considering, a career in the HVAC industry. Do you think I should do it? What would you say to them?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's like, I always think about this and of like, oh, I could do this thing or that thing. Bosch is a huge company. We sell dishwashers, we do ovens, we do mobility, all these different things. So like, there's all these places I could go, but I always come back to this industry. I mean, so many different reasons. Like you said, I mean, not that I'm working with my hands necessarily every day. I wish I was a little bit more, but um, it's something that is tangible. It helps people, and it's necessary. It's something that's not going to go away anytime soon. Like people always need to heat and cool your homes, and making people comfortable is a critical part of the world, right? Um, so there's that importance aspect of it, but then also the decarbonization aspect is hugely important to me, and the sustainability aspect, where like, you know, almost half of the residential energy consumption is coming from heating and cooling air and water, point blank. So if that's something that's motivating you, it's a hugely important industry to be involved with. And the list goes on of different reasons why, but I think no matter what motivates you or what you're interested in, there's kind of a niche or a reason that you could find it in the HVAC industry. And yeah, like I said, that's why I'm probably going to hopefully be in the industry for the rest of my life, because it feels important. And that's, you can't top that when you're working, is just feeling like you're actually contributing and doing something is all that really matters.
I couldn't agree more. So, Gimmie, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me and the trade crew today. If you're open to sharing it, where can listeners connect with you on social media? And then obviously you guys can go and check out Bosch Home Comfort _US on Instagram and some of their socials. And then it's Bosch Home Comfort USA, I believe, on LinkedIn. But where can people connect with you if they'd like to reach out and talk and know a little bit more?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit of an old man in that respect, where I don't have like Facebook or Instagram, unfortunately. But I think that the best place would be one, LinkedIn. So you can just find me, Gimmie Abraham, search Bosch. You should be able to find me there. I'd love to talk to people more. Like, as you can tell, feel free to message me. As you could probably tell from this podcast, I love talking about this stuff. So whether it's a question about Bosch or something more specific like tax credits or rebates, always feel free to reach out. And then I think the next best place is also these webinars. So in those webinars, I try to give out my email and try to share with people that those are great places to ask questions. So please, attend one of those, ask questions in real time, or I'll give my email out in those webinars as well. You can even throw it in the show notes if you want to, but I answer, reps questions, contractors questions all the time about this stuff with, does this product qualify? What does this tax credit mean? All that fun stuff. So I'm always, I love, talking to people and trying to figure this stuff out together. So I think those would probably be the two best places to find me.
So yeah, if you need more information and you can't find enough on hvacrnd.com or on Bosch's website, go hit up Gimmie, check him out on LinkedIn. I'm sure I'll probably be asking him questions too. If you're not following HVAC R&D online, you can find the show on Instagram and TikTok at hvac.rnd and on LinkedIn, Trade Hounds, and Facebook as the HVAC R&D podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the show on your favorite platform, whatever it may be. Please follow the show, like and rate the show, leave me a review, share the show with your friends and your trade crew. Don't forget to check out the website and swag shop. And if you want to work with me, obviously you know how to do that. So everybody have a great weekend. I hope you have a great Christmas, Happy New Year, and I will catch you guys soon. Peace.